gang leader was attacked and died in the clubhouse. Looking at the body, Jack thinks it's an infighting case. But when he found the man's henchman, he denied the murder. Because this time the man said, "Am I that stupid that the police would come after me if I killed my boss?" Jack tried to find a breakthrough from the dead man's social relations, but found out that the dead man became the boss by betraying his big brother. Jack immediately went to the prison to question the gangster John, but he didn't care about his brother's death and even smiled with a vengeance. Jack had to go to the prison director to find out what happened. When he learned that John had gone out to hold his mother's funeral before the murder, Jack rushed to the funeral parlor. However, when he pulled up the surveillance of the funeral, a familiar figure appeared on the screen. Jack was incredibly frozen in place. In order to verify his suspicions, he rushed to his sister's home, only to see a desolate place. Images from his childhood instantly appeared in his mind. Suddenly there was a commotion outside. Jack rushed to hide behind the door, but was still discovered by the other party. He immediately chased after him. Fortunately, the man was knocked down by a car, so it blocked him in a dead-end street. However, when the man turned around, Jack frowned directly in place. He could not believe that his well-mannered brother-in-law would turn into a vicious gangster. But before he could ask, Tom went over the wall and left. Eventually, the two came to an abandoned warehouse. Jack tried to persuade his brother-in-law to give himself up, but Tom seemed to have something to hide. During the argument, they crashed through a steel door and fell downstairs. Jack instantly lost his ability to move and could only watch his brother-in-law leave. Jack then returned home again, but when he walked into the room, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. He only saw the wall was densely pasted with photos and also connected with a red line, and the final target was Henry. Seeing the gym equipment in the room, Jack realized that Tom's love for his sister was so deep in his heart. In order to be able to take revenge, the man actually locked himself up for 3 whole years. Through the photos on the wall, Jack could roughly guess who Tom was dealing with and who his next target would be. He couldn't stand by and watch his brother-in-law make a fool of himself. But it's too late! Tom has already driven his car into the target. Tom tried to run him over, but his men came right up to him. The fragile car window was instantly shattered. Tom was dragged to the ground. He tried his best to fight back, but he was beaten down with a stick. Tom was about to die when Jack finally arrived, but as the crowd disperses, Tom disappears again. Meanwhile, John started to fulfill his promise, but even though he was a famous gangster, he still couldn't beat the vicious Henry. Eventually, the two were seriously injured and sent to the hospital. Soon Jack arrived. At this moment, John finally confessed everything. On the day of his mother's funeral, Tom approached him for cooperation and asked him to help him to beat Henry to death in prison. In return, Tom would take care of the gangster. When he learned that he had been betrayed into prison by his brother, John didn't hesitate to say yes. After learning the whole story, Jack immediately guessed his brother-in-law's next plan. However, just as he stepped out of the ward, the hospital's alarm went off. The corridor instantly became chaotic. The man took the opportunity to break his fingers and break his bones. When the guarding constable ran into the room, hiding behind the door, he knocked the constable unconscious. Another officer who arrived was stabbed with a stick. Finally, he kills them without mercy. By the time Jack arrived, the colleague who was in charge of the guard had long since stopped breathing, and Henry was walking recklessly towards the exit. But the next moment, Tom rushed out and electrocuted him. Tom took Henry to the place where his wife disappeared, but he refused to explain where the body was buried. Angry Tom stabbed him directly and viciously. The intense pain finally makes Henry tell the location. With the stone being removed, self-accusation and guilt, like a huge wave, surging Tom's heart. At that moment, Henry suddenly attacked him. Caught off guard, Tom was knocked down and lost his ability to resist. Henry picked up the drill and threw it in front of Tom, saying, "This is what I used to kill your wife." Tom was still begging him to tell him where his wife was. Henry looks over and points to the side and says there it is. Looking at the rock, Tom crawled over to it with a sense of urgency. At that moment, Jack also came over, but Henry wasn't going to let Tom go. When Jack arrived, Tom was already dying. With his last breath, he told Jack that his sister was here. Jack looked at the stone and then at Tom, who had gone to be with his sister. Not caring about his grief, Jack got up and chased after Henry, finally stopping him halfway up the mountain. He pounced on him like a wild animal, venting his anger like crazy. But just as he was about to kill his enemy, the chief of police arrived with his men. Under the persuasion of his disciples, Jack finally regained his senses. But before everyone could breathe a sigh of relief, Henry laughed and provoked him. When Jack was about to do it, the sniper had already fired. Everyone rushed over. Jack was lucky that he was only wounded in the arm. His disciples scolded the sniper for shooting at criminals. Why did he shoot at police officers? He was struggling with the support of his disciple. In a trance, the image of Tom before he died came to his mind. Jack grabbed his apprentice gun and pulled the trigger without hesitation. With the sound of a gunshot, the bullet pierces Henry's head and the absurdity of the Korean law. At the end of the film, the police managed to find the remaining victims. Ironically, their bodies have not been replaced with anything substantial. This is the 2015 Korean crime film, The Deal. A man investigating a hit-and-run driver accidentally discovers a clue to a serial killer. He apprehends the culprit and collects evidence of the crime. The man is surprised to find that the victim is his own sister. He was angry, but could do nothing about it. He could only watch as the culprit was sentenced to prison, but his brother-in-law had been planning to catch the criminal for 3 years. Finally, he learned of his wife's location from the prisoner, who told the man where it was, and then lost his breath. The man couldn't take it anymore and shot the prisoner. This story tells us that without the death penalty, the crime rate would really go up. This is Zero Sense Film. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.